What's the most insensitive thing someone has ever said to you? That I'm lucky that my husband died. If he was still alive, we might have gotten a divorce at some point and would have had a huge fight for custody of my daughter. At 16, I was a passenger in a car that spun out of control and crashed into a tree because the driver was trying to show off. I was in a wheelchair for 6 months. Some time after the crash, the driver says to me, "If it weren't for me you wouldn't even have that money. Give me some so I can buy a guitar." Another during that period was a random classmate who came up to me after I finally returned to school and said, "Yeah, we were worried that it was the other Hathorim. When we found out it was you we all felt a lot better. How are you feeling?" That's like my ex who crashed my car and thought he should get the insurance money from it. The second part is just horrible. My husband was an alcoholic and my sister bought him alcohol for our Christmas party at my mom's one year. I tried to get him to leave the bottle there, about half full, rather than take it with us, and she got all pissy and said, "God, I can see why he drinks having to live with you." What a B. Her not you OBV. When I was in 5th grade math, my math teacher was teaching my class about symmetry. She pointed a student out saying, "Look at, insert name here. He is a great example of an asymmetrical face." Everyone in class grew quiet after that. My 4th grade teacher said I was a bad person because I tossed my bag on the hook instead of walking over. I'm a cripple, but at least I'm not an butt. Dude, that sounds like a heck of a throw. I'd have told you well done if I was your teacher. Reminds me of a teacher I once had. If he saw you throwing paper in the bin and missing, he'd give it back to you and give you another chance. If you got it in or just walked over, you were fine. If you missed, you got a tardy. Simple, minor, generic punishment. I haven't really written any kind of story or poem since I got a short story published in Reader's Digest my senior year in high school. Showed my mom the magazine, and she said something along the lines of, "What moron would publish you?" When I realized she wasn't just making a harsh joke, I started to hate her and have never gotten over it. "It's been a month. You need to get over it," said my ex as he was annoyed I was still mourning the death of my father. Oh dear, I've been there with the passing of my mother. Most people would be over it by now. It was the year anniversary of her death. I helped take care of her for 2 years until she withered and died of lung cancer. Well, it wasn't directly to me, but I was delivering pizza and one of the instructions on an order said, "Send your cutest delivery boy." I don't go around looking for these orders, it was just a busy night. Take the order and get going. I got to the house and it was a bunch of 13-14-year-old girls and give them their pizza. As they close the door and I'm walking away, I can hear one of them lousy say he was so ugly, followed by lots of giggles. I've totally gotten similar deliveries. Female. They are always disappointed when some chick brings them a pizza instead of some hot 20-something dude. Sometimes they are in bikinins, which is super awkward. Those people don't work in food service, at least not for long where I live. I have to. I lost my brother to suicide, and whilst I was still having a difficult time dealing with it, my cousin, who I've only seen a few times in my lifetime, decided to explain to me, through her religious lens, just what happened to him. It started with, "So he's dead now and his body is in the ground and will stay in the ground till God decides if he is worthy, but because of the circumstances of his death, he won't be found worthy." I was a teenager. I had a cat that was mine and was the only thing in my life at the time lifting me out of my depression. The whole family wanted to go fishing. I decided to stay home. They reverse out of our driveway and accidentally run over my cat. My dad runs back in the house to tell me what happened and that he will take the dead body and throw it in the river while fishing. He whispered this to me so as not to upset my little sister. Whoa, that's incredibly horrible. I'm sorry that happened. I have a cat that has helped me through depression, and I can't even imagine how painful that would be. I was an awkward kid in high school, so when we were learning dancing in PE, you can imagine my discomfort. We were split up into boys and girls groups and made 2 circles to practice dancing. The girls were in the inner circle and would rotate. This one girl I danced with got to me and said, "Man, I can't wait to get back to the hot guys." Gee, thanks a lot. As someone who is average in the looks department, I get my fair share of those comments, and it makes my blood boil. My successful sister once asked me how much I make a year. I stupidly obliged. She then replies with a laugh followed by, "I think I pay more than that in taxes." It gets silent and everybody stares at her. Peace. It was my birthday dinner with family at a very crowded restaurant. Haven't talked to her much since. Don't know if this was the worst, but the one that always stuck with me was when I got my exam results and my dad told me that I didn't deserve those because I didn't work hard enough. Took me another 15 years to realize that I hated my dad. My parents did something similar. In 8th grade, after some serious struggling, I got my algebra grade from an F to a B in less than a 9 weeks period. Everything else was an A. When I showed my parents, who knew how hard it had been for me, the only thing they commented on was how I didn't have an A in algebra too. Will I catch it if we frick an old date after I pulled out my insulin pen, followed by my personal favorite of so like, "Did you used to be really fat? I'm type 1 not 2. I'm in a graduate program for psychology. As you might guess, there aren't a ton of male students in my program. For an assignment, I was asked to run a mock counseling session for another classmate in the program. This session is videotaped and then discussed in class. The client is asked to talk about something real, so the entire class is asked to be respectful and non-judgmental to what the client is saying. As it would happen, my client happened to be the only other guy in the class. During our session, he happened to tear up while describing a particularly painful event. Right as the session concludes and we've walked back into the class, the professor yells, "See class, men really do have feelings." I was pretty embarrassed, but the rest of the class was a wonderful combination of mortified and livid. Sounds like a bad attempt at a joke. In high school, I tried running for student body president. I occasionally asked my dad for help, but he told me no. I didn't win and I was pretty upset because I tried really hard. At graduation, my dad pointed to the student body president and said, "That could have been you." Yeah, I guess his dad cared. When I had just been put on antidepressants and was going through the horrible adjustment period you get when you first start them, I was really struggling to concentrate at work and kept making mistakes. I went to HR and explained everything and that the tablets were making me confused, but I knew that after a few weeks I would be okay. I'd been on them before and would be feeling much better. The woman in HR just said to me, "Well, you'd better start pulling your socks up then," after I'd poured my heart out to her. HR is not your friend. I believe I've commented about this before, but my ex-girlfriend said to me, very calmly, while our relationship was deteriorating, "I tried to look past your outer appearance. I really did. But it turns out you're exactly the same on the inside as you are on the outside." It felt like I'd just lost a nut. For context, I'm a huge, scary looking American Indian dude with neck tattoos and a ponytail. Username checks out. I was in the hospital, youth PICE ward, at 16 after a suicide attempt, and a nurse looked at me and said, "There's starving children in Africa with no arms and no legs and they still want to live." I didn't know what to say, so I was just quiet. Ugh. You'd think a psych nurse would know better. I had one once who saw my self-injury scars during intake and said, "What a shame. You had such nice legs and now you've ruined them." When I was in kindergarten, there was a boy in my class who sat next to me. He would pull up at the corners of his eyes and whisper, "Ching, chong, China girl." I would always tell him to stop. I would tell him I was Vietnamese and Cuban, not Chinese. I was so young that I didn't understand why it was so bothersome. I just knew that it felt really mean, particularly in the way that he said it. In phys ed, we would run laps, and one day he trailed me the whole time asking me to say something in Chinese. When I broke down and started crying, his response was, "You look even more Chinese when you cry." I finally told my mother. She is Hispanic, and her response was, "You do look Chinita." I love my mother, but she really didn't understand where I was coming from at that point in my life. And quite honestly, neither did I. It wasn't until high school that I was really able to pinpoint the source of my discomfort. Ironically, I am half Chinese and often mistaken for Latino of some sort, usually Mexican because it's California. A while ago I spent some time in a psychiatric hospital. A few weeks later I was told that I've already done enough to mess my life up, and man did that sting. When my now husband was talking to my mother, She was saying how she wished I was getting married to my ex-boyfriend. When he told her that said ex would hit me, she said, at least he was fun. That same night when my sister found out, she said, so why didn't you leave? Thanks, guys. Whoa, frick them. I'm glad you're in a better relationship. You're just like your father. My father was a textbook example of a psychopath and massive narcissistic complex. He was abusive, manipulative, and I'm terrified of turning out like him. I had to deal with compliments similar to this when I was younger. It's okay. God gave you serious major illness because he knew you could handle it. Really wanted to kick them in the balls and say it's okay. God knew you could handle that. It's people like that that make me hate my own religion. You do realize that he will probably die, right? Said to me by my mother about my dad. They are divorced. He was in the ICU with major complications from surgery. He is now in a rehab hospital making a wonderful recovery. My son was born with brain damage. The extent of it, though, was not so clear at first. He also had some orthopedic problems. The orthopedic surgeon and his resident came to see him when we were still in the hospital. I said to them, do you think it will be necessary to eventually have orthopedic surgery for his issues? The resident said it depends. If there's nothing upstairs, it's probably not worth it. Nothing upstairs? Is that the medical term? I mean, you're talking to the father of a 2-day-old brain damaged infant. That's a real problem in medicine. They teach doctors bedside manner now since social media allows words to spread about incidents like this. Friend of a friend heard we were using a surrogate to have our future children and said I would never be a real mom. Absolutely broke my heart. I would love to carry my own children but had a hysterectomy due to cancer. Frick that chick. No one needs to frick that chick. Don't want to chance her genes spreading. Punch to the face with a brick is a better thought. Made it into a private high school that was only accepting about 20 people that year. Me and a classmate I knew in passing were talking about where everyone was going for high school. When I told him where I was going, he had the most incredulous look on his face and said, you made it into that school, looks like they're taking anyone these days. Friend made it into an Ivy League. I chose a state university. He made the comment, well, it's just a state school. When I was a kid I had 2 pet guinea pigs that died in relatively quick succession. They only lived around 4 years. One succumbed to kidney issues. The other one just up and died. The vet says we did everything right. We were just unlucky that our guineas didn't live as long as they're supposed to. We buried both of them in my grandparents' back garden. When we buried the second one, my grandfather remarked, maybe next time get a pet that lives longer. At the time, to my 8-year-old mind, it seemed a very cruel and callous thing to say, but when I got older and I learned about my grandfather's upbringing I began to understand. He had grown up during the war, going to school barefoot because the family couldn't afford shoes. He witnessed his own father blown to bits by a German bomb. He then spent his adult life working like a slave in a factory for a succession of horrible bosses who treat him like dirt. After a life like that, there was no room in his heart for sentimentality. Sorry about your piggies. Seems like no one realizes how important these little potatoes become to their owners. I have $500 dead because my boy keeps getting sick and needing vet care. My family says I should just another him or give them away. Are you crying again, my ex? As I'm crying myself to sleep a couple months after my best friend's untimely death. Quiet time to think was always the worst that first year. I'm so sorry you lost your friend. I'm not sorry you lost your ex, though. I hope you are in a better place now. I guarantee you no one wants you around as often as you think they do. You need to stop insinuating yourself on people. Thanks, Mom. Glad all those years of watching me struggle socially and get picked on as a kid led you to think that was an okay thing to say. I still hear that in my head on a regular basis. On the other hand, I was rather proud that my only response to her was, I think the word you were searching for was inflicting. If you're going to insult me, you might want to choose your words more carefully. I was talking about my struggles with mental illness and how I'd been hospitalized about a dozen times, and someone on Reddit said TBH 12 is 10 times too many. Yes, thank you. I'll just stop being hospitalized now. My sister basically told me that what I did to help out the family essentially did not matter. I try to help out whenever I can to help watch and take care of her kids, help out other family members with whatever, take care of the house and stuff, etc. That cemented some resentment for her and my mother because of that statement. To them, I'm always the one out of line and it pisses me off. Guess it's time to stop the free childcare. In a drunken minor argument after a concert last night, I told the woman I've been seeing that I understand why you've been divorced twice now. It was true, but the meanest thing I've ever said out loud. I feel terrible. If you see why she's been divorced twice, do her a favor and split up. You are not the person for her. You will do her a great favor. In a communications class, we had to debate controversial topics. We were assigned a side, either pro or con. It was relatively fine until we got to child adoption. I had told the class I had experience in adoption, but not to what degree. I didn't tell them I gave up my child for adoption years ago. This girl states how people who give up kids for adoption are selfish and bad people and shouldn't be allowed to have any more kids, and she would tell them to their face until they felt terrible and resent themselves for it. I raised my hand and told her to go ahead and say it to my face. The silence and resentment on her face was glorious. Whoa, she's just wow. I know you already know this, but one of the most unselfish, admirable things in the world is giving a child up for adoption. I went on a bike ride with my wife and 2 kids, on 2 bikes, with 1 kid on each bike and a kid carrier seat. Long story short, we had an accident. My wife had to stop short and I swerved to avoid her and laid down my bike. Thankfully, the only person that got hurt was me, pinned under my bike and sliding for about 20 feet. My wife and both kids literally didn't have a scratch. While we're laying in the bike trail, me bleeding, kids screaming, my wife freaking out, a guy rode by on a bike and yelled at us get the frick off the trail like we were seriously inconveniencing him, and he kept riding, didn't even slow down. Thankfully, the next group of riders who came along stopped and gave us medical attention, water, and helped us get off the trail. An old Hispanic man held a door open for me. I said thanks. He responded in a heavy accent with "You look like Rudolph the reindeer," referencing a giant zit on my nose. Probably more funny than insensitive. That is kinda funny though. Also, a zit is not permanent, so no real harm done. If you just stopped being so freaking lazy, you'd feel better. I have horrible chronic depression and some days I can't make myself get out of bed for even the simplest things. The comment was made in reference to me not wanting to leave the house, get out of bed, not even having the energy to go shower. By the sounds of it, your laugh would make me laugh, in a good way. Nobody is perfect, and to be honest, the person who said the first sentence doesn't understand there's more that exists in life than having all the answers in one pot. If you can go out and find enjoyment, that's awesome. If you can't, hopefully you tell yourself some good things every day till you can. My college professor told me you can sleep when you're dead because I was struggling to balance working and studying and my grades were showing it. I have narcolepsy. My mom used to tell me that I'd be a pretty girl if I could just lose 10 pounds. I don't think she understood the implications that would have on 12-year-old me. It can do a lot of damage. My mom gave me her old jeans and said, "These will fit you. They're my fat jeans." This might not seem insensitive, but guys have feelings too. This girl co-worker asked me if I wear glasses to hide the bags under my eyes. I was 24 at the time. Not once did I give a frick or even notice before she said that. That's all I see in the mirror now. That's terrible. Everybody has under-eye bags. What a stupid thing to say to someone. Sitting down to Thanksgiving dinner, my Mill said to me, "I had a heavy friend like you once. She just ate a little bit of what she liked, and the weight just came off." My boyfriend was mad at me and told me I'm the reason my dad left me and my brother 5 years ago. He also said I'm going to be a bad mom because I'm too stupid to talk to people and get a job, and hopefully our child doesn't end up as sucked up as I am. I have a serious social disorder that makes it hard to talk to people. I didn't ever even say a word in school throughout my entire time there because it's so bad. I had been dating a guy for about 6 months. During that time, I opened up to him about my battle with depression and an ugly divorce my parents were going through, which caused my father to use me as an emotional verbal punching bag. I broke up with him after deciding that I shouldn't be with someone when I'm not emotionally available, because it wouldn't be fair to him. He told me that I should go kill myself and that I should keep cutting myself because it will make it so that no one will ever have to talk to me again and that I'm a useless person, so that's why my father hates me. I will never forget that he said those things to me. I had never been spoken to like that and I hope that I never do again. I am so sorry that happened to you. People can be incomprehensibly terrible sometimes. I hope you're doing better now. Virtual hug. My first day back at work after my toddler daughter had died, I made a stupid mistake and one of my annoyed coworkers said, "Dang, it's a good thing we got your genes out of the gene pool." Frick. I'm so sorry. This one happened to me but my instinct was to laugh and the person immediately felt awful. I worked at a school for a long time, and my dad had just passed away and I had just come back from some time off. At the end of term party we always had, someone close to me asked me how I was getting on. Another friend storms into the conversation all happy and hyper and says, "Jesus guys, who died?" He had no idea, but the timing was just too funny, even as I was hurting at the time. He kept trying to apologize but I just kept thanking him for giving me such a good laugh. I find that during my darkest periods of my life something to bring some light to a terrible situation, even if it's unintentional, is a great relief from all the serious crap that's going on at the moment. Girl in college gave me the brush off by saying, "Well, you're not objectionably UN attractive," but that was 25 years ago. It kills me to this day. If you are new to the channel, you can subscribe. I publish new videos every day. Until then, check another video. Bye for now.